Okay, so today we're going to do a deep dive into some fascinating stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Looking forward to it.
gene editing and cloning.
Yeah.
And
really interesting stuff.
you sent over some really thought-provoking material about the ethics of it all and kind of where we're headed with all this. So
The big question.
yeah, I mean, I think, our listeners probably already have some baseline knowledge of gene editing and things like that. But what really stood out to me in reading through these sources is how accessible gene editing has become.
Yeah.
Especially with CRISPR.
Absolutely.
It's not this far-off sci-fi concept anymore.
It's real.
Yeah, it's like
It's happening.
a tool that scientists are using like right now in the lab.
Yeah, and the sources you sent really highlight that. I mean, one article even compared CRISPR to like a molecular word processor for DNA, which I thought was just a brilliant analogy.
Yeah.
We've gone from very crude ways of manipulating genes to now pinpoint accuracy.
Wow.
And that obviously opens up this universe of possibilities,
Right.
like treating diseases that were previously untreatable.
Right.
And then
Amazing.
it gets even more wild, like potentially enhancing human capabilities.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really
Yeah.
interesting, I think, because,
That's the big ethical question.
yeah, just because we can,
Exactly. Should we?
yeah, should we?
You know,
And that's really where these sources get.
they dive right into that.
Yeah.
There was one bioethicist who argued that, we have like a moral obligation to use gene editing
Okay.
to alleviate suffering,
Right.
especially when it comes to these really debilitating genetic diseases.
I can see that.
But then, there was another article
Yeah.
that countered with a really interesting question.
Yeah.
Where do we draw the line between therapy and enhancement? You know what happens when parents want to use this technology to select traits for their children,
Oh.
like intelligence
Oh, wow.
or athleticism?
Yeah, the designer baby.
The designer baby dilemma, exactly.
Yeah, that's both fascinating and kind of scary
It is.
at the same time.
It's a little unnerving
Yeah, for sure.
because you start to think like,
Well, one of the articles even
Yeah.
posed this scenario where, gene editing becomes so commonplace that it creates new forms of inequality.
oh, absolutely.
Like,
Well,
imagine.
that was a big concern in a lot of the articles.
Really?
Yeah, it's not just about like individual choice, it's about how these technologies could like reshape society as a whole
Wow.
and potentially, exacerbate existing disparities.
Yeah, where the wealthy can basically afford to enhance their kids
Exactly.
and give them this,
Yeah, give them a leg up from birth.
huge advantage,
Yeah.
right out of the gate.
It's like something out of like a dystopian sci-fi novel.
It really is, yeah.
Yeah.
And then you layer on top of that,
The unintended consequences.
we just don't.
We're talking about tinkering with the very building blocks of life.
And we don't fully understand it.
We don't.
All the sources were very clear about that.
The human genome is so complex. We
Oh.
don't fully understand all the intricacies of it.
And so you tweak one gene, and it could have,
Ripple effects.
these domino effects on other,
Your genes, yeah.
leading
Yeah.
to who knows what kind of health issues.
Yeah, and it could even impact like future generations.
Oh, wow.
It's a lot to consider.
Yeah, that's a huge responsibility.
And a lot of the scientists in the articles really emphasized the need for caution.
Okay.
Like, we need to do a lot more research
Ah,
before we start widely applying these technologies.
makes sense.
We really need to proceed with humility
Right.
and acknowledge that, we don't know everything.
We don't have all the answers.
We don't.
Yeah, so where do we even begin with all this? I mean,
That's the million-dollar question.
yeah, all the sources seem to agree that there's no easy answers.
There aren't. So what do we do?
One thing that really struck me was the call for a broad societal conversation. It can't just be scientists making these decisions.
Right.
It has to involve ethicists, policymakers, the public.
Yeah, everybody needs to be a part of this.
Everyone needs to be a part of figuring out how to use these technologies responsibly.
Yeah, it's a huge responsibility.
It is. The stakes are incredibly high.
Yeah. So to kind of wrap all this up, it's clear that
Gene editing and cloning.
these technologies have the potential to completely revolutionize medicine
Oh, absolutely.
and reshape our world.
Yeah.
But there are some big ethical questions.
They raise these huge ethical questions that we really can't afford to ignore.
And that's the key takeaway, I think, for your listeners.
Yeah.
As these technologies continue to develop, stay informed.
Yeah.
Engage in those critical conversations.
Be a part of it.
Yeah, think about, where you stand on these issues.
What does it mean for you?
Yeah, because the future is in our hands.
Yeah.
It's up to all of us to shape it responsibly.
Yeah, good stuff.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you coming on and talking us through all this.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Okay.
All right.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in to this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone.